All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are listening to us. This is Lars Light of the Somm Journal, welcoming you all to our Geographical Digest educational webinar series brought to you by the Somm Journal, SommCon, and National Geographic. Where today's theme is going to be exploring single vineyards, which I'm very excited about. To me, I think as important as terroir is, single vineyard is really the ultimate expression of terroir. So this is going to be a fun experience with some brilliant winemakers, literally from all over the world. And I'd like to introduce our publisher and editor-in-chief, Meredith May. Good morning, Meredith.
Good morning. This is going to be a good one. I was really looking forward to this show today, and I think we'll have a great recap story in our April issue of the Somm Journal that will bring it back to life again, although people can see it recorded anytime, so it doesn't go away. And I want to thank all our panelists on behalf of National Geographic, SommCon, and our wonderful partners.
Yes. Excellent. Yes, and as Meredith mentioned, this is available through our sommjournal.com website. It's available on SommCon Somgo. So there are a bunch of different ways that you can access it and get to relive this wonderful moment that we're having today. I also want to thank Meredith. She's been very generous with National Geographic folks. I can stand up to make sure you see this wonderful book that National Geographic has published, the New Sotheby's Wine Encyclopedia. It's an incredible reference and resource. And we actually are going to be sending 5 of these out to the first 5 people who send me a little recap. Doesn't have to be anything formal, just a short, brief recap of some key points that you got out from each of the presenters today and how you're going to be able to use that information. And if you just do that and send it to me by email at Lars, L-A-R-S, at sommjournal.com. Information's all right there, Lars at sommjournal.com. So we look forward to hearing your recaps, and I have no doubt that everybody here is going to enjoy this as much as we are. And I'm just going to get it started and let the speakers really bring it all to life. So our very first presenter is Will Costello, who's brand ambassador for Bien Nacido in Santa Maria. Will is presenting his Chardonnay and talking about the single vineyards there. Will is a MS, Master Sommelier. I met Will a bunch of years ago at the Grand Del Mar in San Diego. He's worked at the Mandarin Oriental in Vegas, and now he's on what those of us in the industry like to call the dark side or the light side. I don't know. You decided. But Will is a great guy, new father, mountain climber. And interestingly enough, I didn't know this about you, Will. You're a certified pilot. And fun fact, I feel like we're on one of those 1970s What's My Line shows. There is another certified pilot in this audience. Don't say anything, anybody. There is one other certified pilot who's presenting today. And the first person who can guess it and put it in the chat wins my eternal respect. No prizes, but just a little fun activity. So Will, please talk to us about Bien Nacido.
Yeah, Lars, I was a pilot in training. I had my commercial multi-engine and instrument rating in the hopes that I would be flying very large jets at some point. But I realized at some point that it's kind of boring in the front. You can't read a book, you can't take a nap, and wine is much more interesting. So I'm excited to share about Bien Nacido today. And, for those of you who know and recognize Bien Nacido as a vineyard name, it's probably because we are considered one of the actually the most single vineyard designated wines in the world. And when we talk about terroir and when we talk about single vineyard, it's interesting to start off with a fact as broad as we have had more than 15,000 different wines labeled as Bien Nacido. And it's interesting to think about because when the Miller family purchased this property, which was a single estate granted as a land grant from the governor of California in the late 1960s, they planted it understanding that they were one of the first in the region in Santa Maria as well as Santa Barbara to make a vineyard. This had mostly been farmland for broccoli, strawberries, and green lettuce goods. And so over the years, because of the quality and high respect of the vineyard, We have had over 270 different producers buy fruit from us to make their wines. And when you extrapolate that out over 43 years, we just finished our 43rd harvest. We have had over 15,000 different bottles labeled as Biennacido. Now, the interesting thing today is that we are focusing on our most important word here, and it's estate. So technically speaking, in the United States, the highest level of quality for a wine is not necessarily single vineyard, but it is estate wine, whereby the vineyard is owned or managed generally by a single entity, and all of the wines are made on the property owned by that same vineyard. And for us, while so many other wineries have had success in buying and producing Biennacido vineyard, there really is only one Biennacido estate. And we'll focus on not only the whole vineyard today, but also the estate wines themselves. Now, when we talk about where this is in the world, we're talking about California. We're talking about the Central Coast, so 4 hours south of San Francisco and about 3 hours north of Los Angeles, tucked into one of the colder regions of California, as the coastal waters here are really too cold to go in without a wetsuit. Wonderful fishing, wonderful marine life. This is where you can see some of the largest waves in the world. But at the same time, you see this beauty of being further south than areas like Napa Valley or Sonoma, and a little bit further north than areas like Mexico, where it can get a little too hot. So we consider ourselves to be lucky from the perspective that the cool ocean winds match with the beauty of the California sunshine to create what is considered one of the cool climate areas of California. If we talk about technical character, we are considered a Winkler Region 1, which is the same temperature as you'd find in Champagne in France, in Austria, in the Rheingau in Germany, and in Central Otago in New Zealand. So really very, very cool. And the amazing thing about this place is that we have this every year. So these are some of the frost protection that has come through. And if you can see the icicles coming down, this was taken in 2018 in February. And right now, if we were out at the vineyard about 3 hours ago, when this would have been taken 6 a.m., you would see frost almost everywhere. It's a beautiful thing when we can get the vines to truly shut down, let the rains come through in early January and into February and March, and let the vines really go into a dormancy. It's something that in the New World, we don't always see, especially with things like global temperature warming. And so what this gives us as an opportunity is that sideways mountain ranges, and this is something that I can say is also very unique about Biennacido in the whole world. We have one of the only mountain ranges on a coast that runs from east to west. We consider this a transverse mountain range. And instead of what we've all heard about a rain shadow effect, whereby wind comes in, it hits the mountains and sort of dumps all of its rain and cold on the windward side, the mountains have turned sideways and allow for all of the cold air to flush through on its way to the desert. What that gives us is quite a bit of unique terroir. And when we talk about Biennacido as a single vineyard, this whole property is over 2,100 acres, or about 950 hectares, for those of you who use the hectare system. So it's very large. But when we think about the specific single blocks that we use as an estate, we primarily focus on the old vines that were planted in 1973. Now, the wine today that we're talking about specifically, Biennacido Chardonnay, comes from a single block called Block W. And again, this was planted back in 1973 when the tractor technology was quite a bit different. Back then, you typically needed to plant on at least 12-foot rows, if not larger, for a traditional tractor with those big wheels and a ton of plow equipment to get through the vineyard. Now, as tractor technology has gotten, you see tractors with tank treads and you see them able to drive themselves. Well, back in 1973, we planted this on 12-foot row spacing, which is quite large. It gives the vines plenty of space to set up roots and dig down as far as they can go. But in the mid 90s, as well as the 2000s, we went back and we actually planted in between the rows some younger vines. So when we talk about this single vineyard and single block expression of Bien Nacido Chardonnay, this is only the old vines planted in 1973 and on their own rootstock, which for any of you who understand the scourge of phylloxera, we certainly know about it from the 1880s in Bordeaux and all throughout France. We decided, because we were so far away from any other vineyard sources, that we could plant on their own roots. And a lot of people have asked me the question, what does that do to the actual wine? And the best expression I can say, because there are so few single vineyard ungrafted Chardonnay vines in the world, what it gives us is a more pure expression of Chardonnay. And you can think about it, as we all do, wearing a mask. Right now, we all wear masks everywhere we go. We kind of consider the rootstock to be a mask. You can still hear everything through a mask, but there's something lost. And this Chardonnay, we hope, gives the purity of the vineyard. The winemaking itself is entirely organic. We do not add any non-organic fertilizers in the vineyard. We also focus on natural fermentation. We don't fine or filter this wine, so it really takes some time and effort to make sure that this is kept up to standards. And for us, it reflects the idea of being farmers first before we're making wine. Just to conclude here, it's important to know that because of how cold this vineyard is, the numbers here, and some of you might recognize 3.16 pH. This is a natural acidity. This is the same acidity that you'd find in something like a beautiful bottle of champagne, except this wine is completely dry. So it has acidity for days and can really age for 10, 15 years, no problem. But we make it in the idea that this should be able to drink early, just like wonderful white Burgundy, but at the same time have the ageability. And 7.8 TA combined with that 3.16 pH is what makes our terroir so special in the world. What do you think, Lars? I know you have a bit poured in your glass.
I love it, Will. It's got some beautiful fruit. You know, it's the cool climate comes out with that nice crispness, but it's got some beautiful, almost tropical fruit on the edges of the palate. It's a really beautiful wine.
Yeah, thank you. And that's really the beauty of that cold wind combined with the beautiful California sunshine. It gives us acidity and fruit, which I think everyone in the world today will probably comment on. That's what they're looking for in their wines.
Amen. Hey, well, a couple of questions on the property. Is the wine bottled on the estate?
Yes, it's a requirement for an estate wine to be bottled on the estate. So the beauty is that this wine literally never leaves us from the time it is flowered in the vineyard until it's bottled and stored, usually about a total of 24 months after harvest, finally, before it gets into anyone's glass.
Cool. That's great. Real sense of place there. And give me a real fast thumbnail sketch of what's going on with your hospitality program. We had a question come in about that.
Yeah, so we are actually building a tasting room on the property so that we can give people tastes in the specific blocks. But right now we have a tasting room. It's located in Los Olivos, a beautiful part of Santa Barbara, next to about 30 other tasting rooms. So you can come see us while you are still clear of mind and make your way to a bunch of other tasting rooms in the afternoon.
Very cool. Thanks,
Thank
Will.
you,
I
Lars.
love tasting wines in the place where they were made, and I can't wait till we all get to do that again.
Absolutely.
So staying down in SoCal in that cool climate, it's my pleasure to introduce James Ewart, who is the winemaker for Diora Estate in San Bernabe, an Australian who's come to the U.S. His father was a winemaker in the Adelaide Hills, and he's been 20 years in this area making Pinot Noirs and Chardonnays in the Santa Lucia Highlands. They're just beautiful wines. James has a very deep understanding of the soils, and one of my favorite quotes of James is that he sees his mission as to enrich, not change, what the land expresses, and he's very concerned about making sure you have the right grape in the right place. So tell us a little bit about that, James, please.
Well, thank you very much, Lars, for that very kind introduction. So we're San Bernabe is located a couple of hours north of Will in Santa Maria, so we're in the Monterey County. As you said, Lars, I grew up in the Adelaide Hills and with my father, who is also a winemaker, and growing Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So I haven't strayed too far from those two varieties here at San Bernabe. as you said, I came over 20 years ago and really have a viticultural passion. And thanks for that introduction, because I really believe, you know, as a winemaker, we really should guide these wines, these grapes from the vineyard to the winery, and really express the vineyard. As you can see, there's a beautiful shot here of the vineyard with the Golden Hills behind us, the San Lucia mountain range. And so that inspired us to come up with the name Diurnal. It's a take on the French word for gold. It really is a pretty spot, and unfortunately, it's still quite gold at the moment. We're really looking forward to some rain coming in the next couple of weeks. So a little bit going down the valley here. San Barnaby is about 60 miles from the Monterey Bay, and it's framed by the San Lucia mountain range, as I said, to the right-hand side of the map here, and then we have the Gabilons on the right-hand side to the east of us, and they really funnel the afternoon winds down from the Monterey Bay. It really acts like an air conditioner. As I said, the San Lucia mountain range is a pretty formidable mountain range, not only blocking the marine influence directly from the coast, but also really catches a lot of the rainfall that then flows into the Salinas Valley, because we only get between 8 and 12 inches of rainfall a year. So a very low amount, but as viticulturists, we can really precisely farm those wines. So a little bit about the San Barnaby Vineyard and the AVA. The total AVA is about 25,000 acres in total land, of which right now there's probably about 5,000 acres planted. In terms of the climate, it's cool to a moderate. We do get some warm days, but they're only for a couple of hours before the wind picks up and really cools everything down. So as a winemaker and a winemaking style for our Jura wines, we're really looking for some very ripe styles, so we can get those ripe notes during the peak of the day, but we still have the cool nights that slow down that respiration of acidity. So, you know, it's pretty striking. I remember when I first came over 20 years ago, it was in August, the middle of summer, and it almost felt like it was warmer in Australia during the winter time than it was in Monterey. So it is very, very striking with the fog in the morning and the wind in the afternoon. So I've talked a bit about why the climate is very unique to San Barnaby. Let's take a step back and talk about the history. San Barnaby was once part of the Mission San Antonio, where the first grapes were planted by the missionaries back in the early 1800s. They recognized it was a good place for growing grapes, a very dry Mediterranean climate. But it really wasn't until the early 70s that vineyard planting got underway at San Barnaby in a very big way. And at the time was a very large infrastructure project with many miles of canals being developed to deliver water to the various sites throughout the vineyard. And as well, sit down in Santa Maria, we have a lot of frost events too. So we have to protect those vines with sprinklers during that time. So as you can see, this is a great shot looking back to the San Lucia mountain ranges to the west. And we've got a lot of undulating vineyards. And so after the Indelicato purchased the property in 1988, they really undertook a major replanting program and really focusing on the right varieties for this vineyard, and a lot of that Chardonnay and Pinot Noir with a little bit of Syrah, but then also fine-tuning what clones we want to plant. And it's been a really great experience for me to be here over the 20 years and watch us plant new clones of many different varieties, but in particular Pinot Noir. And so today we really have some core clones that we really like for our Pinots. We're really looking for that darker style, the dark cherry Pinot. So 667, Pommard, 115, some 828, some 459 are all clones that kind of in the mix today. So again, as a winemaker, there's a lot of diversity in the vineyard, and so it's really exciting when those grapes come to the winery and they get to play and weave those different clones into the resulting blends. So let's dig a little bit deeper and talk about the soil here. This is a soil map of San Bernabé. You can see there's a number of different soil types, but the overarching soil type, that grey on the right-hand side of the map, are Aeolian soils. Aeolian meaning they're wind-derived. It's quite unique to San Bernabé. If you go north and south of the vineyard, a lot of those soils are sedimentary in nature, meaning they were deposited by water versus the wind. Now, these soils, picture going to the beach, are very coarse soils, and those rolling hills that you saw on that last slide are those sand dunes stabilized over many, many years. The resulting effect on the wines that we get from those grapes is some really nice concentrated small berried wines. They don't necessarily have the texture, but they have the bright fruit expression and the ripeness. So soils tend to get a little warmer than say the Lockwood Shaly loam soils, which are on the left-hand side of the map. So on the left-hand side of the map, as I said, these are the Lockwood Shaly loam soils. These are basically the foothills of the San Lucia mountain range. These are much heavier soil, much darker and richer soil. There's also calcareous fragments throughout the soils, which I think kind of lends to giving texture, a little bit more texture to the wines. So, kind of in summary, we've talked a bit about the climate being the dominant force. And then we interweave the differences in the topography aspect, and then also the clones. And then on top of that, match the soil types. And as you saw earlier, there was a lot of different soil types running throughout. So for those that are lucky that have some wine in front of you, this is our first estate bottle of Pinot Noir, La Grande Majesty. It's an expression of our best Pinot Noir block at San Bernabé, but as a winemaker, I couldn't help myself settling on just one vineyard. I did blend in some 828 from the Aeolian soil types, but predominantly these is grown on that hillside property. So there's some really nice dark cherry, some nice round texture, but again a ripe style. I think a great true to place style. So with that, I hope everybody enjoyed the presentation and got a snippet of San Bernabé.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I remember back in '88 when the Indelicato family bought the property, and it started out as a much larger property, but over time they pared it down to really, I guess, what you would consider the prized vineyards, right, James?
Yeah, absolutely, Lars, and we've really focused on the best spots in the vineyard and looking at luxury and premium wines. So yeah, it's been great to kind of watch that evolution and be a big part of that.
Yeah, it has. It's been fantastic and beautiful examples of again, cool climate wines. So thank you very much, James. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Next up is we're going to Toscana with Riccardo Boggi. Riccardo is the sales manager for Argiano. He's brought with him his Brunello Vina Del Sol from a single vineyard on the Argiano estate, which is just on the southeast side, but I'll let Riccardo tell you more about that. He's always been fascinated by winemaking since he was very young. Went off and studied enology, got involved in different aspects of the wine business that brought you to St. Martin and Zanzibar, but then back to your native Tuscany since 2016, working with Argiano. And you're a native of Siena, so we need to ask, which contrada do you wear the shirt for?
Well, I'm for Montone. It's the Ram.
Fantastic.
It's the contrada. Thank you, Lars. And well, yes, a lot of traveling in the last years, but I had to come back to the roots. And I came back to Montalcino, actually living here, and I just fell in love with the place that I knew since when I was a kid. So talk about the wine that we are going to present today. We have the Brunello Vina del Sol, which is quite a recent wine that we produce in Montalcino, in Argiano. The first vintage is the 2015, the one that we are going to taste today. Before, from that vineyard, we were producing another wine, so it was still a single vineyard wine, but with a different approach. We wanted to make our best expression as a DOCG, so as a Brunello. I'm going to share a quick presentation that is going to help to understand where we are from, where we come from, and our philosophy of production. So Argiano is quite an old winery. We are there since almost 500 years and always producing wine. Of course, it was a totally different kind of production, but since then we are in the winemaking. First, I would like to show the geological history of Montalcino, starting from about 100 million years ago, when the first soil, the Galestro, was created. We had a volcano, the Mount Amiata, that is off since about 200,000 years. And then about 30 million years ago, we had this tropical weather, a shallow sea with a lot of life. And then after the glacial ages, the water that went away, what was left was this calcareous, this limestone soil, so the marl soil, which is our most important kind of a soil that we have. And then, of course, rain, a lot of rain, the erosion from the highest part of Montalcino, the creation of rivers and creeks. And this is how it looks nowadays. So we're talking about three major soils in Montalcino: the Galestro, the marl soil, and then, of course, the more alluvial soils, more sandy and rocky soils that we have. So it's a big mix, and now we are going to see where we are located exactly. It starts from very far away, but it's better to understand where we are exactly. So Siena is far, about 45 minutes by car, and as you can see, that is Montalcino. It's a hill that stays in the big valley. So coming from the Tyrrhenian Sea, you have this hill. It's about 24,000 hectares of surface. It's actually the biggest DOCG in Italy that lays on a single village area. So at 24,000 hectares, but only about 4,000 hectares have vineyards. The rest is forest. And this is one of the most beautiful things about Montalcino, is the diversity. Nowadays, there are about 230 producers, and the different profiles that you can find are great because everyone has developed its own identity based on the terroir, based on the style, and of course, based on the vintage. So Argiano is on the southwest area of Montalcino. The sea is about 40 kilometers, and it lays on this plateau. It's a single parcel estate, about 135 hectares with 57 hectares of vineyards. So everything is there. Consider that from the north to the south part, it takes 5-6 minutes with a tractor, which is a great detail for the production and also for the efficiency of the work. So mostly it's Sangiovese in red. We also have Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Petit Verdot because we have been the first in Montalcino to produce a Super Tuscan, so it's the heritage of Giacomo Tacchis. But most important are the soil type. You see in this map the different kind of soils, and it is a very simplified map. The red one is the marl, so a lot of limestone on the clay soil, and then we have also more alluvial soil, more sandy and schist soil with gravel and round stones. And these are 6 microparcels because we are experimenting a lot. But the most important one is this, the Vina Del Sol Vineyard. It's 4.4 hectares of surface, about 10 acres, and it's the oldest vineyard that we have, planted in 1965. So this is where we produce the Vina del Sol. It's something quite unique because here we really have the combination of the 2 major factors that we look when we make the wine. So it's the age of the vines, and it's also the soil type. A lot of limestone, So it's kind of a poor soil, is where the vines have to struggle. They have to send their roots deep in the soil to get the micronutrients. And to do so, since many years, we are doing only organic farming. So no use of pesticides, no use of fertilizers, because we want biodiversity. We want a balanced environment. And thanks to that, we are able to follow our philosophy. So showing the identity, the profile, and the personality of the different vineyards. Once again, as you can see, we're in the southwest, and Montalcino can be divided in 4 big macro areas where the soil is different, the altitude, the exposure, the forest density is different. So where we are, we have kind of a beautiful mix of different soils. Once again, we are here, and Lars, you know the area very well. So we have different neighbors here, but the winery has always been there, and has been there in a very beautiful place. And we will see the headquarters of the estates. So on the different details about the Southwest Terroir is that we have a Mediterranean sea, a Mediterranean climate, quite a moderate climate with a long growing season. The influence of the sea is great because we don't have very low temperatures, but also we don't have extremely high temperatures. We don't have so much rain, and this is mostly thanks to the Mount Amiata, this ex-volcano that really keeps, as a magnet, keeps the water away. So it could be a good or a bad thing. Of course, it depends by the vintage characteristics. But usually in the southwest, we have a drier summer and a little bit less rain compared to the north sides. Our Brunello comes from the red parts, is where we have mostly the clay and limestone soil. But as you can see, in the north part is where we have the Vina del Sol. The production is very limited due to the age of the vines and due to the production that we can have there. But of course, we just try to do our best from there. And as you can see that here, we have done a huge research on the soil. Different soil types that we can find in our vineyards is the most beautiful thing, because you learn 100 things and then you have to learn another 1,000 things. And this is what we try to do every single time. And the marl soil really helps to force the vines to explore the soils. Thanks to the biodiversity, the microbiological life helps to transform the substances into nutrients, and then is where we have the balance. Talking about the estates, I didn't talk much about the history, but it's just a beautiful place that some of you had the chance to visit. So the villa is the 500 years old building, is where the landlords, the noble family, used to rule the whole area in the past. And as you can see, you can really breathe the history here, the tradition. So the big oak barrels that are used for the Sangiovese, and it's really difficult to describe, but it's beautiful to visit, because we talk about history and we talk about what we can really show with our vineyards. With the Vina del Sol, of course, 100% Sangiovese from that vineyard. We do spontaneous fermentations. We do the vinification in concrete. And then the aging, it lasts about 30 months. So a few months more than what is required by the DOCG. But the main character is the Sangiovese, with a very little frame of woods, thanks to the Slavonian and French oak barrels. And it really drives to an elegant profile, a lot of minerality and acidity, tannins that helps to the longevity of the wine.
Wow, Riccardo, I feel like you were leaning over the screen and looking at my notes, because those are the two hallmarks that I wrote down, was the beautiful elegance of this wine and also the minerality. A lot of times when you think about the heavy clay soils that you get around Montalcino, you think of more deeper fruit and tannins. This wine has beautiful elegance and grace, I would say. You know that in that area, I don't know how much you've explored. I've gotten lost in the woods behind Argiano myself on those crazy dirt roads. And between there and Camigliano, off toward Poggio alle Mura as well, in some parts of the woods, there are actually hot springs. Very little, very little known, not really usable, but fascinating to know that there are hot springs in that area.
And also wild boars and few wolves, but you don't have
Plenty
to
of
worry
those.
about
I've been chased by a wild boar or two, but that's a whole nother story. So thank you, Ricardo. Thank you very much. Very
Thank
well.
you. Thank you.
Salute, Ching. All right. So now we come back to America and Mike Senior. Mike Senior is founding winemaker for Ancient Peaks, another great place that I had the opportunity to visit just a couple of months ago, Mike. I was there in November, and I got to have a nice chat with Carl, one of the partners of Ancient Peaks, and I will say one of the ranchers, because it really is a ranch and very diverse property. And you've been there 20 years as the founding winemaker, overseeing the Santa Margarita Vineyard, and I know you have that same philosophy of reflecting remarkable growing conditions. So tell us a little bit more about it, please, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Lars, and thank you guys for attending, and thank you for inviting us. Yeah, here at Ancient Peaks, we're in Paso Robles, California. I will click over here and get my screen shared to get that going. Okay, there we go. So yeah, as you've seen, we got Will down south, Vina Del Sol, and up north, James is about 40 minutes north of us. Will is about an hour and a half south. So Paso Robles is our AVA. We've got about 40,000 acres of grapes in it. And for us, we happen to be the southernmost vineyard in the appellation of Paso Robles. When we're here to talk about a single vineyard, that's really kind of our hallmark, is that we're so far south in Paso. Here's our appellation map. Again, Paso Robles vibe here is just laid back. It's a cow town. It is recently gotten discovered, but we still have a lot of other ag going on. In that map, as you can see here, a few years ago, Paso Robles was broken down into 11 sub-AVAs. And one of those AVAs happens to be the same name as the ranch here, the Santa Margarita Ranch. And so as you take a look at that, up north, you got the Estrella District, Adelaida, Willow Creek, got great friends up there. The brands here, there's a vibe here, when it comes to place of vineyard and kind of a feel of the wine and area. Paso just is laid back. We all hang out, we all roll together. Our kids playing the same teams together, So, and back to Santa Margarita, we're the southernmost vineyard in the appellation, and our little AVA or sub-AVA of Santa Margarita Ranch is so far south it actually doesn't touch any other part of Paso. Yeah, we're Paso first and foremost, but our little spot is pretty unique. And so, continue on. There's a little picture of the vineyard there. The vineyard history really does it. It has a long history, as we heard earlier from the San Bernabé up north with the missions. This is an original mission property or mission rancho. We have an Alta Estancia here. So there's a building built in 1774 that's still here. But in the modern times, it was Robert Mondavi from Napa Valley that came down and really did a long, hard search on the soils and the weather here, and just fell in love with this area, the potential. I had the great fortune of working for Art Mondavi in the 90s at Byron Winery. And remember that time period when Art Mondavi company was exploring all over California to expand their vineyard holdings. They came here and met with the three families who own the Santa Margarita Ranch and Ancient Peaks Winery now. There's the Filipponis, the Rossis, and the Widstroms. There are three hands-on ranching families. These guys are here with us, getting it done every day. They love their horse and cattle. That's really their passion. It's branding season right now. But when Mondavi planted the vineyard, they actually took about a 36-year lease and wanted to kind of just sit back and grow grapes here. As Mondavi sold their company, they negotiated with the three families. And in 2005, the families purchased the lease back from them. And in 2006, I partnered up with them and we started Ancient Peaks Winery. So Ancient Peaks, the name, it really is about those mountains you see there. You heard earlier in the presentation with regards to the Santa Lucia mountain range. It's pretty interesting and great because this world of wine is so small. The Santa Lucia, which is James right in the middle of, ends just south of us, right there at Vina Del Sol. And those are the Santa Lucia mountain ranges you see in that picture there. So it's funny how we all kind of all related. The map, you guys, a picture is 1,000 words. You guys take a look at this map here. It is a unique aspect when we talk about a single vineyard wine. The ranch itself is 14,000 acres that these families own. And for our friends in Europe, it's about 5,600 hectares. The vineyard itself, we're showing about 850 acres. It's really about 1,000 acres now under vine. That's 400 hectares. So it is its own appellation as far as a vineyard. But when it comes to large vineyards, you guys, these pictures really tell the story. It is not square. It's not based on what is called farmability. It's based on the terroir. It's based on the slopes, the hill, the aspects. You guys, again, I got to feel that Robert Mondavi love back in the 90s, that publicly held money, and we spent a lot of it. And a lot of that was laid into this vineyard in terms of how it's laid out. So it really is something we get to live today, is really the foresight of Robert Mondavi. So the things, when it comes to what makes a wine different, you guys, we know that it's soil, it's weather, it's people. Let's focus on soils for a second. Again, this ranch is just blessed by size and location. Soils, there's 5 distinctive soil types on the Santa Margarita Ranch. We know exactly where they're at, really identified. All of those, what they really do for us and me in terms of winemaking is just, it adds, the colors to make the picture. We just don't have 20 acres in front of the house. I mean, this is a very large vineyard spread over 6 miles from tip to tip as far as our farming operations, and these 5 distinctive soil types. Now, one of the unique soil types we have here is that oyster shell, is the ancient seabed, we call it. So you guys, here's a little visual for you in terms of these oyster shells. These are an absolute huge Jurassic species of oysters that we have here. And again, that's a specimen of it, you guys. It looks great here, but come out with this. If you've been here, these things will break your toe as you walk through some of these vineyards. And again, it's not just a little piece for a journalistic property and a show. We've got well over 100 acres of that material. So it's just a really unique material in which to grow grapes in. Another one we have here, which you see a little more around California, is the Monterey Shale. It's a great soil profile to make wine with. So there's a great shot of Doug Filipponi, one of the owners, owner in charge of viticulture there, into a backhoe pit in that soil profile that hosts those oyster shells. The other part of it, as far as uniqueness, is about weather. You guys, it's a cold spot here. We're cold in the spring, but we're also cold right there at harvest time. So before Robert Mondavi planted this vineyard, no vines were grown anywhere around here within about 5 to 10 miles. So it really was an unknown entity at that time. I'm a local guy. I've been in the wine business here since 1991. And I had friends that really questioned the logic of planting a vineyard here. What do? Do you plant the Bordelais varietals? Do you go with the cool climate stuff? It's so cold here in Santa Margarita. So the Robert Mondavi company really focused on the Bordeaux varietals, and really, I'm just so happy with that. And we've just been so blessed by that decision. Yeah, it's cooler here. We don't get those extreme heats, but man, as you guys know, when you're on the edge of ripeness, it's that zone you can achieve greatness. And it sounds great when we're promoting and we're here talking about our wines. It's not so fun when we're out here and trying to get this stuff ripe. So that is definitely a big challenge of what we do. So the weather, is again based like everybody else as far as that position. Ocean's about 14 miles to the vineyard, so that's a very cold spot. And again, weather-wise, it's definitely on the cooler scale of creating wines. It's a nationally distributed brand. That was one of the mantras when we started the company, was we wanted to over-deliver for price point. That's something we're very proud of, to bring forth to you an estate wine, family-owned. We're certified sustainable, but a great price points which you can drink these wines every day. A great picture there. There's myself, the little guy on the left, and the big tall guy there's Stuart Cameron. And so he's our hands-on winemaker now. As a founding winemaker, I've really worked in vineyards, and it's really being a cheerleader for Stuart, making sure things are in the right direction. So I just wanted to shout out to Stuart because he's a great part of the team. So let's focus on this Cabernet in the glass here, I guess in my glass here. Lars, I think you have some too.
Yes, sir. I'm enjoying a beautiful fruit forward, nice round plum fruit, cherries, but great acidity, great balance through it. It's really nice wine. Thank
you. Yeah, that's really the hallmark of these wines. There's a real freshness to them. It's really an aspect of this ranch. People, my background, I came up in Chardonnay and Pinot Noir country and learning, training, got married in Burgundy. And so people often accuse me of that when we started this company. But anytime you've come here, people can barrel taste them. It's really an aspect of the vineyard itself. again, Cabernet is our focus varietal. It just does well here. We were advised early on to go with other varietals, but we really just felt Cabernet would be the key thing. Another thing I do want to communicate about the temperature here is these diurnal swings. And you guys, that's the daytime highs to the nighttime lows. And man, we pack sweaters here, you guys. Yeah, we can get up to 90 degrees, 100 degrees during the day, but man, we can get down into 50 overnight. So that diurnal swings, you guys, is a key part to our wines, and being such a cool part of Pastoral is a big part of that acidity in the wine. Because at nighttime is when you aspire acidity. So nighttime highs can really set you apart. And we're here, it's pretty darn cold. So, you know, some basic information there. There's our tech sheets. You know, we have the other varietals to work with. It's truly, as a winemaker, you guys, a winemaker whose whole life has been focused on just creating a sense of place and understanding that this is an absolute place that is a joy to be around. You know, we just have everything here that we need. So it's really a great place to be. We wish we get out of these conditions. We'd love to have you here for sure. So awesome. We are certified SIP, Sustainability in Practice. In fact, this vineyard, when owned by Robert Mondavi, was one of the test plots in which you found the vineyard team, which is now is certified for this practice. So it's something we're very proud of and we love. So I wanted to share that with you guys, but that's our time. We're honored to be on this call, you guys. Honored to be with you, and sometime soon, we'd love to see you here in Pastoral.
It's awesome. Thanks, Mike. Great presentation. Beautiful wines. These really, when I tasted through them when I was visiting, so many of them are just such great food wines that you're making. I guess that has a lot to do with the soil. And by the way, speaking of the soil, if you start running low on seashells, there was a group confession here on the chat room that at least 2 or 3 people have some of your shells. So I don't know if you're holding them hostage, but you'll know where some of them went anyway.
Excellent. There's plenty more. So yes, come see us.
Excellent. Great. So from all American, now we're going to go a little international and talk about Argentina with a Frenchman who's sitting in the rains in Bordeaux right now, Patrick Delon, who is the owner of Alta Vista, Argentina. His family goes back, European nobility going back to the 13th century. Former owners, only for a short term, only 150 years, they own Piper Heidsieck. Patrick studied international law and then saw the light and switched back to his family's heritage in wine. Looked at a bunch of different properties. In 1998, he purchased a 98-year-old vineyard, 15-acre vineyard, and really was big part of the sea change in Argentina of introducing beautiful quality and single vineyard expressions. And in case anybody's wondering, this, my friends, is the other certified pilot on the panel, right? You got to take yourself off of mute, Patrick, and we want to hear all about that. And we want to hear about the terroir management system that you guys have adapted there in Argentina and what you're doing in terms, I know you're very proud of sustainability as well. So bonsoir, good evening.
Bonsoir, Lars. Thank you very much for your invitation. Bonsoir to all. I'm Patrick Delon, the founder of Alta Vista. Let me first, Lars, thank you again to help me with the presentation. We can go maybe to the map of Argentina to talk a little bit where is Alta Vista Winery. So it's in Mendoza. Mendoza is a province at 1,000 kilometers on the west side of Argentina. The other side is the Atlantic Ocean, where is the capital of Argentina, Buenos Aires. We are at the bottom of the Andes mountains range, which are one of the highest, but also one of the longest mountain range in the world. Mendoza is really, for the one who don't know, the capital of the wine industry in Argentina. 80% of the wines are produced in Mendoza. 2 dates very important, I think, to mention about Mendoza. In the late 17th century, the first Spanish immigrants brought vines and planted them in Mendoza. So when some people are talking about Argentina as a new world country, well, we have already 400 years of wine history. So the second is very important because in the late 19th century, the governor of Mendoza, Domingo Faustino, who afterward became president of Argentina, asked the French agronomist Émile Pouget to come and try various French grape varietals to see which one would be the best adapted to the terroir of Mendoza. and among them was Malbec. Malbec was coming, from the southwest of France, Cahors, but also Bordeaux, and he really found his place in Argentina and Mendoza particularly. Can we now move to the other slide about myself and the family?
Excellent.
Here we are. What a great contradiction, but this is what it's Alta Vista of both culture. The French on the left side, you have guessed, and the Argentinian on the right side. So as Lars said, I'm coming from a 250 years of family heritage in the wine history. My family was the owner of the Champagne House Piper Heidsieck for, as Lars said, 250 years. So first vintage was in 1783. My ancestor, Florent Louis Heidsieck, created the Champagne House just before in 1770. And we have here at the house a painting of Florent Louis showing his first vintage to the Queen of France, Marie Antoinette. So quite an heritage. I don't have time because I've only 10 minutes and we're talking here about single vineyard to talk about these 250 years and my ancestor, but I just want to mention my father because François Delon, when he was running Piper Heidsieck, was a pioneer and an adventurer and give me this spirit. He was one of the first one to bring out of Champagne a project of single vineyard for sparkling wine with the méthode champenoise. He was one of the first one to went to California, to the Sonoma Valley, where he produced a single vineyard sparkling wine with a méthode champenoise. He also went to India. Can you believe it? Yes, we can make some single vineyard a sparkling wine with a méthode champenoise in India, but also went to Argentina. And in the late 70s, he went to Mendoza and produced a single vineyard sparkling wine called Henri Piper, which was very popular at that time in Argentina. So with all this, I felt there was a potential in Argentina because Argentina is not only about high altitude vineyard, it's about Malbec. And Malbec had this French heritage. And I really love the combination of French heritage with this high altitude vineyards. So I came in 1998, and we can just go back because I want to show you this incredible picture of Juan Argerich. I was blessed to meet the Argerich family, which is probably one of the oldest wine growers family in the province of Mendoza. He is the 5th generation, and this is really what is about Alta Vista, the difference what is Alta Vista among the other wineries in Argentina. It's the combination of both culture, the French culture and the Argentina culture. And that's, I think, very important to point out. Let's just move into the next picture because I'm going to talk but very briefly, but it is important about a winery. So we can show this picture, and after last, we can show there's a picture on the winemaking part, because this winery is one of the oldest winery in Argentina. It was built in 1890, and it's one of the only running winery for 120 years, despite all the crisis. Yeah, we can continue down, despite the crisis. And I just love ancient building. I feel there is a soul there, probably because of my old roots. So I really fell in love with this winery. So here we are. And you see, what we did is that we didn't reconstruct anything. We just renovated. We kept, all the historical parts of the winery, but we added, the newest technology. And that's also is very important, the combination of ancient and modern. Now let's I'll just go back to the picture of a winemaking team, because of course there was at the beginning this, we met with Juan Argerich, but on an everyday basis, here we are. We are talking about a bicultural team. And this is really what we have on a daily basis. So here you have on the left side and right side, 2 Argentinians, Pamela Alfonso on the left side, who is our vineyard manager. And on the right side, Adrian Meyer, who is Argentina, our winemaker. In the middle, Didier de Bonneau, head winemaker from France. So this is really the combination of, I would say, the French winemaking know-how with the Argentinian knowledge of their terroir. We can go to the next page, which is we're going to talk about the terroir. We have maybe just one more page. Thank you, Lars. and one more. So we have everything here. It's going better to operate. Here we are. So we have 116 hectares in 4 different vineyards. Mendoza is an oasis. So it's surrounded by the desert. You have almost from Mendoza to Buenos Aires, 1,000 kilometers of desert. And on the side, you have the Andes. So in Mendoza, you have two oases, the northern oasis and the southern oasis. We have 2 of our vineyards which are in the northern oasis, which is the one in Lojan de Cuyo, which is a DOC, Alezarin and Azamor. And on the southern oasis, in the Valle de Uco, we have Albanef and Temis. And we'll talk about Temis a little bit longer, because this is the single vineyard we are presenting today. 4 important facts I would like to tell you about why is the Argentinian terroir and single vineyard different from any of Fran's presentation tonight. We have first altitude. All our vineyards are above 1,000 meters, which is very important because in Argentina we have very hot days, and which is perfect for the ripening of the grapes. But with the high altitude, we have also cooler nights. So we get very good balance wine, which is very important for the quality of our wines. Water, yeah, we can just keep maybe the LCPO because this is the one, the Temis we're going to talk. Thank you, Lars. Water is very important. It's one of the purest water in the world. It's coming directly from the snow melting of the Andes, and it's one of the key components into the single vineyard quality expression. Climate is important because we are in the semi-desertic climate. As I said to you, we are in the oasis. Basically, if we would not have the water from the mountains, we would not have life. We would not have a vineyard. So what is amazing here is it's extremely hot and dry during the day, but again, so bringing a full ripeness of the grapes, but on the same day, you have very cooler nights. So the difference of temperature between the day and the night, sometimes it could be a 20 degrees Celsius difference on the same day, is bringing really this balance between the ripeness of the grapes during the day and the freshness of the grapes during the cooler nights. All vines, very important. I'm from France, and this is a key, I think, for the complexity of our wines. We are blessed by nature in Argentina and history. This is also part of what is a terroir. The history, the people kept their vines, and we have an average age of our vineyards are 86 years old, but some of the parcels, like the Temis we're going to talk, the single vineyard we're going to talk, is above 100 years. We really like the complexity brought by these vines. Soil, we'll talk a little bit later, but most of the soil are on the surface, it's more a sandy type of soil, about 0 to 20 centimeters. And after we have a lot of pebbles. The pebbles are coming from just the mountains decomposition. So that's very interesting because it's bringing the minerality of the wine. Very quickly, how do we manage, these single vineyard? Is we did for the over 20 years, we did really a haute couture management. We did a full mapping of our vineyards, and every vintage we went more into the parcels, into the plots. So now we are, during all the year and the harvest, we are managing them separately and differently. I see the clock, so I'm going quickly. So that's very important. Harvest, we do also the harvest and the vinification and the aging, always separately and specifically to the plots. Temis, very quickly, do I have 2 more minutes, Lars? Is it like what we have?
I'll give you 1 minute.
You give me 1 minute, okay. So very quickly, Alta Vista was the first winery to release a single vineyard in, here we are, we can talk. Yeah, in 2001, first winery to release a single vineyard. We gave the trademark single vineyard to the Argentina wine industry in 2015 to the condition that each producer with a single vineyard label would be able to show that it's coming from a designated vineyard. Themis, what is Themis? Here we are. Themis is 19 hectares, but we only use 3 hectares of this 19, which are the oldest part of it. It's about 105 years old vines. A very small production because old vines were about 5,000 kilos per hectare. Harvest, we're in the south hemisphere, so opposite. It's in March, mid-March. The soil here is very light, but just on the small surface. 5 centimeters after we have almost 3 meters of pebbles. So it's bringing this lovely minerality into the wine. Vinification, very quickly, vinification, we like, very long maceration, 30 days. We age in the French new oak for about 16 months, and we like to cellar the wine also for 2 years. So the single vineyard Themis, 2013, why Themis is the goddess of the order. So we like order in our vineyard, and it's incredible wine. We only produce it 5,000 bottles per year. This one got amazing press release, 97 by James Suckling, 95 by Robert Parker, 95 by Tim Atkins, 93 by Wine Spectator. And it's not only ever this year, every year, we are very constant with the recognition of the press. Great wine, you don't have it in front of you, go and buy it and taste it. Dark fruit notes, a lovely minerality on the nose, a great structure because of the old vines, and a great balance on the aftertaste.
Yep,
Thank
Patrick,
you so much. I did not respect my 10 minutes. I apologize. You need always to have a bad one in the class, and I was the one.
Well, thank you. And the wine really is beautiful. I can see the European, the French and European sensitivity in the wine. Good, beautiful structure to the wine. For a Malbec, it's a lot more linear than I would normally expect of an Argentine Malbec. So it's delicious. Congratulations on a great wine.
Thank you, Lars.
And thank you for the presentation. So sorry to cut you short like that, but we have limited time. So next we're going to stay with our French friends. We have another Bordeaux native, Christophe Palbert, who is the senior winemaker and general manager for Stag's Leap. He's presenting the Leap. Christophe worked at Chateau Yquem, Gerard Leroux. He's worked in Chile, he's worked in Spain, he's worked in Washington. Another believer that wine should express the uniqueness of the land. And my favorite term of Christophe is that he says you never stop learning, because you really, truly don't in this wine business. The more you learn, the more you realize you have to learn. So Christian, tell us a little bit about what you've learned and teach us a bit, please.
Thank you, Lars. Yeah, no, it's thank you for inviting us, and I love the topic, and I love the panelists. We all have the same passion of finding this special piece of land, this dirt, this particular weather that is going to make the wine kind of different. And that is the love of our lives, I think, to find this part of our land. So at some point in my life, I thought, it would be great to go and work in California. I am a whale-watching person, and Monterey is not too far. But I didn't have a clue what I was talking about, actually. And I couldn't imagine that I would land at Stag's Leap. We on the industry, we say wine is culture. And coming from Bordeaux, lots of culture, but I landed at Stag's Leap. I am going to try to do the sharing. Perfect. Does that work? Yep. You see my screen? Yep. So yeah, I couldn't imagine to land here because that was one of the first estate planted in the mid 1880s in Napa, and we need to imagine Napa at that point. I would love to see photos of the valley in 1880s to see how it was looking like. Forest, crops, I don't know, but now it's vine and vine and vine. But it would be very nice to see. Actually, I would love the appellation and the valley to do a video where you can see the evolution of the planting of year after year. It would be awesome. I never saw that. So Stag's Leap planted early 1880s, and again, dirt and weather. So you have a picture. Normally, let's see. Why it doesn't work this time? Normally I have a picture.
How about you have arrows on the screen at all?
Yeah, but it says it's on my screen, but not in the
Lower left hand.
Okay. Okay, I will continue explaining
Okay,
it works.
if you want to share, then I will share my version of your PowerPoint.
Okay, yeah, page 2 with the, thank you very much. So just to say, so I can talk about it without the map. We are around 10, the whole valley from the Semplabo Bay is 45 kilometers, 30 miles. And we are around 10 miles north, 10 kilometers, 7 miles north of the town of Napa. So we can say that we are in the southern part of the valley, which is really, really influenced by the bay. Which is interesting, and it's where I come from. You have fog mainly in summer. Here, the fog are mainly after July. So when we are ripening, and being on the southern part of the valley, we beneficiate for the morning fogs that decreases the number of hours we can get sun. So. You can see maybe the picture I have behind me or before. We are in the map of the appellation. The appellation was the third one created in 1987 in the valley, the third AVA. And you can see we are, it's very small. We are on the northeast part. And you can see in the east part you have the Palisades, and on the just on the west you have a little piece of hill here, and that is that narrow funnel that has been the reason why the appellation was created, because the Palisade is basalt in summer being so hot, it drives the air up and the air from the south, and that is what they call an orography, and that is what defined the appellation. The appellation, the Stag's Leap, is the smallest in the Napa Valley. It is 1 mile over 3 miles, and there is only 17 growers in this valley. But even if it is a small valley, even if you are a small estate, we are only 85 acres, around 30 hectares. We have several types of soil. The Palisade, the erosion gave us some lots of iron also in the soil, which is good, very good. And we have lots of broken rocks. We have also a small stream on the northern part, and I want to sometimes imagine this stream millions years ago, for million years, sending the alluvions there, and that brought us another type of soil. And at the end, on the west side, we have very deep, loamy black soil. So that's the thing. The leap, the one we are talking about today, it's a blend of these different components, giving us different aromas, different texture. And when I arrived 12 years ago, actually, the wines were a bit hard. The tannins were a bit hard. And you know, there is no miracle. The wine we make, the way we make them, if the tannins are harsh, it's because it comes from the soil. So we had to work a lot. The production was very, very low, like around 1.5 ton an acre, which is really low. It can be okay if it is for a good reason, but it wasn't. And so we had to rework the soil, to re-give the soil lots of nutrients, compost. We have a cover crop to nourish the soil on the long term. And little by little, we could see the vines being a bit more healthy. We could see the microclimate in the vines being better for the fruit. And little by little, the tannins soften. And we made even, which is not usually what a winemaker wants, but we made, the production was higher. Normally, we all want to make less crop to have more concentrated. Actually, we achieved that here, increasing a bit the crop and regaining regaining a good balance for the vine. So you can see in this photo, you can see very well the palisade we are talking about. There is behind the winery, when it rains a lot, meaning a lot, it can rain a lot in winter in California. We have 8 inches, 12 inches in a few days. We have 12 waterfalls falling from this palisade. So you can imagine the erosion so something also interesting is we are also certified sustainable, and we work only on 4 wells, and the winery really depend on that. So to help to be sure we can give a bit of the water is a bit like my predecessor. We wouldn't have water. We couldn't irrigate. I think we would have lots of trouble to make a decent wine. So we built recently a 4 million gallon retention pond where we can accumulate the water during the summer, during winter, and reuse it during summer. So to take care of the land is very important. And talking about terroir, it was even, as mentioned before, Napa is very interesting because of the temperature change between the night and the day, like in Argentina, but it can be even more strong. It can be like 30 Celsius degrees difference between the hottest days and the nights. So that is, I think, everywhere in the world where you have this high temperature between day and night is where you can make very, very good wine. And that's we beneficiate from that in Napa Valley, and in the south, I would say even more than that. So for the wine also, can you Lars, can you go back to the map, please? So
previous
the property. Map? So I want to take 2 seconds to talk. We are very known. I won't going to talk about Cabernet, but we are very known for Petit Terroir. And there is this block, and in the top you can see it's called Nece Malis. That was a motto of the Chase family who founded the property, and that means don't give in to misfortune. So if you drink a little bit of that every day, you will be very lucky. But it's a very special piece of land because it's our oldest block planted. It is on rootstock. It was on Saint George. It was planted in 1929. And something very unusual, this block of Petit Terroir, it's a field blend. There is 85% of Petit Terroir, and the rest of it is like salt and pepper mixed, totally random in the block. There is 16 other varieties. So that's a little bit of our jewel. And as I say, we don't make only wine from the estate, but the estate is really our soul. And any wine I make that is not coming from the estate, I try to find fruit that is going to mimic the quality, the tannins, the aromas of what we grow on the property. And very often it comes from the south. So the south of the valley, that is more close to what we do in the estate. But again, that's a word I like to talk about with this vineyard, planted such a long time ago. It is our soul, and it is really a jewel, and something interesting. The winemaking learned in Bordeaux is really dedicated to show the fruit. So everywhere I've been in the world, people ask me, how do you adapt? You don't really have to adapt if you really are focused on making a very simple, straightforward winemaking that is dedicated to show the fruit. You can travel everywhere. And so it's why we don't like too much over ripeness, because I think you erase a bit the expression of terroir like that. And very traditional winemaking, long maceration when it is when the fruit allows us. And so I am kind of very scientific minded, but for me, science is to understand what the generation before have little by little empirically discovered. So it's very simple winemaking. It's a grape. I have to say we use yeast because even if I pick early, we get sugar in California. But beside that, it's a fruit, it's pumping over, it's natural oxygen splashing. And the way, people ask me sometimes compare to Bordeaux, and I told them, thank you, but it is not what I want to achieve. My goal is to show the beauty of the fruit, maybe with a philosophy from Bordeaux, which is dedication to vineyard, dedication to showing the fruit, and not too much over ripeness. But my philosophy is really to show the fruit that grows on this property, and
Yes.
it is a beautiful fruit. But,
Thank you.
last anecdote, I read lots of things and about what was before me, and the iconic winemaker here was Robert Britton. He's now in Oregon. He stayed here for almost 20 years, and I was saying sometimes of these wines made on this property, they are a bit, and I like that, they are not in your face, they are a bit austere. And I like that, you need to dig on them. And many years after starting at Stags, I read something that Robert Britton wrote, and he was mentioning the word a bit of austere. So I thought, I was delighted by that.
Wine is beautiful, Christian. It's 100% Cabernet.
So there is something that I have added to the property. This map is not fully updated. I put a little bit of, planted a little bit of Malbec. I love Malbec and because of the softness, the vibrance, and the floral expression. And I also planted a block of Petit Verdot. Again, Petit Verdot is unique because it brings two things that should be contradictory. It brings strength, it's very powerful, and it's very aromatically floral and violet. So it brings strength and it brings elegancy. And for me, I like to make big wines, but the bigger wine, the more elegant they should be. And Malbec and Petit Verdot help me to achieve that. Yep.
Thank you, Christophe. Christophe, you've made the proverbial iron fist in a velvet glove here. The wine is beautiful. Thank you. And unfortunately, we have to keep moving on though, but magnifique. Well done. Merci.
Thank you very much.
All right. And so batting cleanup, as we say in American baseball, as a dear friend from Chile. I had the pleasure of working with Isabel's mother and uncles back in the 1990s. Really I would say one of the royal families of Chile, families that really brought Chilean wine to the forefront, doing some exciting things. Isabel started in 2011 working with their chief winemaker, Marcelo Papa, who was on our series earlier this year. And she spent some time in Italy making some Franciacorta at Bertolucci. She worked at Fetzer. She was at Mouton Shield. So got some nice, well-rounded experience. And again, that philosophy of not interfering with the expression of the grapes or altering their qualities, just guiding them through the entire process. And that's beautiful. So Isabel, tell us a little bit about that philosophy, how you practice it, and what is Gravas del Maipo all about? Welcome.
Thank you, Lars. Hello, everybody. So yeah, I will share the story of Gravas. Okay, so today I will talk about Conchitoro Vineyard, Puente Alto de Terroir, and Gravas del Maipo. But the main actor in this case is the Terroir Puente Alto. But everything beginning with a story, with a history. So our history starts in 1883 with our founder, Don Melchor Conchitoro. He was a very visionary man in Chile at that time, because in Chile we only have, to put it in context, we only have in Chile the Spanish varieties that the immigrant Spanish brought to Chile. So he decided to make the best wine, but he always looking to France. So he decided to travel to France and brought some vines. So he brought some Prephyloxera vines from France, and he planted here in Maipo, in Pirque, and in all this area. So we have a muscle selection today that is a vines that Don Melchor brought. So it's very important because we don't have a new clone. We have that muscle selection continue with us. So we have like 100 years of vines planted in Puente Alto. But our main actor that I said is our terroir. So it's the Dio Puente Alto. And here it appears different characters in this story to understand why our terroir is very important. But to put it in context, we are located in the capital of Chile. We are in Santiago, very close. It's very urban area. So Puente Alto is located in the north bank of the Maipo River at the foot of the Andes mountain. Chile is very narrow, so we are in 1 hour and a half. We are in the coast, and from Santiago in 40 minutes we are in the Andes mountains. So it's a very narrow country. So we have also in this area in Puente Alto, we are restoring the biodiversity of the area. We think that it's very important to maintain and to keep it, the biodiversity. So we planted like a biological corridor in the Puente Alto vineyard. So one of the characters that it's appeared here in the story is the Maipo River. And the person who can explain very good how the Maipo River works or why have a very good potential, we want to put it Charles Darwin, because when he came to Chile in 1830, he said that I'm gonna read the things that Charles Darwin said. I think it's very beautiful. He said that the Maipo is rather than a great mountain torrent than a river. The fall is very great, and the water, the color of mud, the roar is very like that of sea. At its rush among the great roundest fragments, amid the din, the noise of the stone rattling on over the other is most distinctly audible. I think that Charles Darwin expressed all the potential of the Maipo River, because it's very hard. You see the big stones, so everything is created from the Andes area. And the other character that is appearing in this story is the Andes mountain. It's very huge. Like Patrick says, it's like a very huge range of mountain, if one of the biggest. So why the Andes have a very important factor in Puente Alto? The one thing, it's Puente Alto is in the foot of the Andes mountain. So the Andes moderate our temperature because our climate is semi-arid. We have like a hot summer, cold winters, but we have a very huge oscillation during the daytime and the night times. We can reach temperatures like during the day, like 13, 31 degrees, but during the night, the breeze came down from the Andes and refreshed the valley. So during the night, we can reach temperature of 9, 10 degrees Celsius. So we have a very huge oscillation, and that helps for the vines that we can keep it the acidity. And also we don't have like a very fast ripening period. It's very slowly, so we can reach the tannins, phenols, and everything for have the best moment for keeping the grapes. And with the Andes and with the river, it's created all the soil. It's why origin the soil. So I'm gonna explain why. Yeah. So I'm gonna explain how the soil of Puente Alto created. So millions of years ago, there was an alluvion. So all the volcanic material carried down by the Maipo and start to deposit in different terraces. So we are located in the third terrace. So the third terrace is the oldest terrace. So we can find more complexity in terms of soil. So we can find like more clay in some area, more sand in others. We can find big gravels, rounded gravels. So we can find different styles of soil and different combination of soil in our area. Our area, it's like 127 hectares. It's mainly planted by Cabernet Sauvignon. And we have the Merlot, Petit Verdot, and Cabernet Franc. But it's very important that we can find the different combination of soil, because at the end, we can have different styles of characters of the same variety that is the Cabernet Sauvignon, and we can find different styles of Cabernet Sauvignon. So the soil is rocky, it's alluvial, it's very deep, and also have a very good drainage. That helps a lot for us, because if we have rainfall, for example, during the harvest time, we can go inside and it drains the water, and we can go and keep it and pick it the grapes. So it's very good. And it's a very poor very poor soil. For us, we think that it's a good thing for the restriction that we have in that soil is very good for the Cabernet Sauvignon. So we said that the Cabernet Sauvignon, the vines that brought Don Melchor in 19th centuries, have a new home here in Puente Alto, here in Chile. And we think that we can produce a very high-end wines with a good potential of that soil. So today we are gonna talk about Gravas. Gravas is our Cabernet Sauvignon. The line of Gravas have also a Sauvignon Blanc that it's come from south of Chile, and it have a Syrah. But today, the wine here that we are gonna taste, that you Lars have, it's the Gravas 2017. And in this case, it's 85% of Cabernet Sauvignon. We have 10% of Cabernet Franc, 3% Petit Verdot, and 2% Merlot. But at the end, it's more Cabernet Sauvignon. You have the expression of the Cabernet Sauvignon. And if you taste it, sorry everyone that don't have the wine, but Lars, you have it. And you can see that the expression of this wine express all the Cabernet things. And you have a very full expression in terms of aroma and full mouth. It's very smooth, but have the structure of the Cabernet. It's a very heavy Cabernet, but I think we have a good wine here. So cheers.
Sorry, I did the cardinal sin of Zoom and I left myself on mute, but the wine is beautiful. It's chewy, it's dense, it's got beautiful flavor to it. And yet, again, it's got a nice background as well. It really is, it's a beautiful mouthful of wine.
Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, we want to thank everybody for your patience and your attention. I want to remind you that they will have the written recap in the April issue of the Somm Journal. And you can see a tape of this. Some of you, if anybody had to get off early, you can see the recording on sommjournal.com. It's also available through SommGo, thanks to our friends at SommCon. And this has really been a great pleasure. I want to thank each of the panelists. This has been enlightening and fascinating, and I'll even say fun. It's always frustrating for me to have to deal with the time limitations, but thank you everybody for your understanding. And we're going to sign off, and thank you all very much. See you next time. See you next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Au revoir. Adios. Arrivederci. See ya.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.